Welcome to Here You Go. Here You Go is a project I started in order to present media that has been created or enhanced with AI. The project is primarily for my own entertainment and experimentation, but feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy it too. And now for the presentation.
Mirage for Planet X by Stanley Mullen. Chapter 1. The prize was sealed, its contents unknown. Yet scavengers from a dozen barbaric moons, adventurers from nameless, semi-explored asteroids, arrived for the deathless auction to bid on Roper's notorious loot. They were bringing in the prisoners who had escaped from Phobos. Sand skimmer ambulances had raced to the spaceport outside the terraced Martian city and waited. Dust devils danced on the wide, wind-whipped Martian plains. Granner of the police and his silent companion examined each body as it was lowered from the rescue ship. Death anywhere is an ugly business. On Mars, you get used to bodies that never rot. Deep freeze temperatures hold down decay bacteria, and the dry, cold air quickly desiccates the tissue. Bodies turn into mummies that look and weigh like so much shredded wheat. But these corpses were worse. They were meaningless parodies that might never have been men. In primal disgust, Tori studied each one in turn, then shuddered and shook his head. Granner was tough-minded, or stronger-stomached. Police routines had taught him not to shudder. "You can get used to this," he observed, enjoying Tori's revulsion. "Since you'd known Roper, we thought you could help us identify him. Thanks for coming along." "Had I a choice?" asked Tori bitterly. The policeman's laugh was brutal, explosive. "There is always a choice. You can do as you're told or be dragged and screaming." Tori grimaced. "Much more of this and I'll be dragged out screaming." The prisoner escapees, what was left of them, were an unpleasant sight. Explosive decompression in airless space does curious things to men's bodies. Blood boils in the veins and flesh bursts from internal pressures. Also, there are heat-cold curiosities, with half a body burnt raw on the sunward side, and the rest frozen iron-hard with a lacy overlay of snowflake patterns in red. Holden was still alive, by a miracle. Forward compartments had held together when the makeshift spacer blew its flimsy self inside out. He was alive but not talking. They brought the bulging mass of pulped, purple flesh back to Mars and dumped it in a basket. There was no face, no eyes, no recognizable hands or feet. For the time that remained to him, Holden would be less than a functioning animal, fed by tube, cared for by people he could not see or hear, living a precarious existence on the raw, black fringe of life. Holden was through talking. And for any practical purpose, through living. "Too bad," said Granner, looking into the basket. "He could have told us about a lot of things if he'd wanted to." Holden was a nice guy before he knew Bart Roper, Tori snapped angrily. "You sound pretty bitter about Roper." "I should be. I know him better than you do." "I am bitter about Roper." "Because of Holden?" pressed Granner. "Not Holden. But it might as easily have been me in that basket. 6 years ago I was Roper's partner. I got out quickly when I found out some of his business methods. And I had very little he could steal from me then. A lot of people have a variety of good reasons to hate Roper. Just say that I'm one of them." Granner whistled a Martian tune. The sound was shrill and eerie in the thin air. "You may as well ride back to the city in the police car with me," he suggested. "We can talk," blurted Tori. He swore savagely. "All this ugly business for nothing. You haven't found Roper yet. You don't even know if he made good his escape from your prison moon. In short, you don't know anything." "True, up to a point," agreed the policeman quietly. "There are always many things I don't know. So I concentrate on the few things I do know. For example, you're very much interested in finding Roper. I'm wondering why. You can tell me about that on our way back to the city. About Roper himself, I know a few minor facts. Nobody has ever escaped from Phobos, the prison moon, but Roper may have managed it. With outside help, he got materials and fittings smuggled in to construct a scratch spacer. It blew up, as we know, but Roper may have expected that. In a good spacesuit, he could have survived. Since we still haven't found him, dead or alive, he's probably circling somewhere in a private orbit, waiting to be picked up. It could be a long wait. One man is hard to find in all that space. Not necessarily. A code transmitter powered by transuranic alloys would keep sending indefinitely. And Roper could have agreed upon being picked up at some point of a fixed orbit by his outside friends. We'll find him, I think. In the meantime, we have you and some questions. Wait in my car. I'll be with you as soon as I thumbprint some papers. Tori stumbled across the barren sand wastes of the spaceport, pitted or glazed here and there by old takeoff blasts. Without trouble he located the half-track vehicle bearing police insignia. He got in and settled himself sourly to await Granner's probing third degree. He meditated grimly on Roper, himself, and his reasons for coming to Mars. Had it only been last night he arrived? It seemed eternities ago. Coming in from Earth by short-orbit express, green with deceleration sickness, he had wondered why he was in such a rush. After 4 years a cold trail would not get any colder. It had not, of course. It was hot when he arrived and had been getting hotter by the minute. Only the fact of being aboard the express at the time of the prison break had cleared him in Granner's eyes of being involved physically. And even that alibi did not erase suspicion from Granner's suspicious nature. Granner was shrewd and deadly, a born hunter of men. Since the Martians never trust each other, most of the policing is done by hirelings from other planets. Granner was an Earthman originally. But he was a long way from home, and 20 years on Mars had made him more Martian than the natives. He was hard, smart, dangerous, and a tough man to fool. Tori had learned that at once last night. But Granner's return to the police car cut short his reverie. Tori watched the official cross the spaceport toward him, impressed by the lithe grace and sureness of movement over treacherous sand. Mars does something to a man who stays there. The body dries up and the soul withers, but if he survives, a man grows into something lean and leathery with pantherish strength and easy, poised motions. Granner vaulted to the driver's seat and slammed on power. With a skirl of steering runners, the half-track took off toward the bubble city of New Chicago, named without tenderness by some long-forgotten exile. Granner drove with careless violence, but the half-track skimmer shot among the dunes and low, lichen-clad hills without incident. There's no truth to the charge that it takes as long to get from the spaceport to New Chicago as it does to reach Mars from Earth. But the distance is impressive and the going rough. Granner talked as he drove, seeming casual, but his questioning had the same icy skill and unerring judgment. "We'll start at the beginning," he said. "There is no beginning," Tori jerked out angrily. "I got in last night. Fresh from the spaceport and customs, I put a coin in the public visiphone and asked Central information about Roper. Central had no information and returned my coin. It was a police trap. Your men picked me up, searched me with a Geiger counter and found the coin. You keep faintly radioactive coins in the visiphone machines for Central to return when someone is curious about police business. It came out even. You found out I was curious about Roper, and I found out he is police business, and his case is current. Do you think I'd be fool enough to call such attention to myself if I knew about Roper's prison break? You might be. And it might be smart. That way you'd find out what the police knew and what they were doing. And it could be an alibi in case the breakout was delayed. We'll skip those possibilities for now. You were mulish last night about certain questions. I'm still not clear about why you are so desperate to find Roper." "Why?" Tori smiled coldly. "That's easy. I have to find him for a legal release. Preferably dead, which will make things easier for everybody. But if he's alive, I want his signature and prints on some papers." "Why?" "What papers?" Tori hesitated. "It's a touchy subject. A personal matter. Nothing to do with the police. I'll be the judge of that. Keep talking. Have you ever spent 5 years on an asteroid all by yourself?" Granner grunted. "Fortunately not. 20 years on Mars is bad enough for me. Have you?" Tori's face twisted in bitterness. "I have. I cracked up my one-man space can while prospecting in the asteroids. I was there 5 years until a survey ship happened by. There were minerals, low-grade transuranics, but good enough to work when you had nothing else to do. I worked out the whole asteroid and had a good payload for the survey ship when it brought me back. Not a big fortune, but a stake that looked pretty good to me. I'm not rich now, but I can get along without skipping meals. What's the connection with Roper? None in that part of it. I went prospecting after I dissolved my partnership with Roper. Times were bad, and I couldn't tie up with a decent job. There was a girl, there usually is. Who was she? Rose Mead, then. She promised to wait for me. She didn't. She's Roper's wife now. Not that I blame her too much. A year can be a long time, and 5 years is longer when you're a castaway on a small asteroid. Nothing to look at but a sky full of stars. Nothing to breathe but hydroponic cycle air. No food but your homemade synthetics and the green stuff you grow in your chemical vats. You work and eat and sleep, and any idea can become an obsession. Sometimes it's one woman, sometimes an imaginary harem. I had a 3D picture of Rose. It helped to hold me together, or maybe it just channeled an idea that was bound to go haywire. You're beginning to make sense, commented Granner. So you have an obsession about Roper's wife? I call it that. But I figure that all my money is not worth much if it won't buy just one thing I've dreamed about for 5 long years. There's a technicality about divorcing a man who's away from Earth, in space. Rose is funny about it. But she's agreed that her marriage was a mistake. She'll marry me if I can prove Roper is dead, or can get a release from him. Is the girl worth all this trouble? Tori grinned cynically. Probably not. But Rose is a good, sound, practical-minded girl. Maybe my money looks good to her. Roper left her 4 years ago with hardly any resources. For myself, after 5 years of dream stuff, a solid human girl like Rose looks pretty good. Dream stuff looks fragile, but it's mighty tough eating for a daily diet. So you want to find Roper? Preferably dead, you say. Does that include pushing him off a cliff if you find him? Tori snorted. It could. That depends on Roper. The policeman echoed the snort. Roper is dangerous. You may have forgotten how tricky and ruthless he can be. Sounds to me like hunting a tiger with a butterfly net. Tori smiled viciously. Even that can be done if the net is big enough and strong enough. I'm counting on a curious twist in Roper's mind. I'm a challenge to him. The one man so far he failed to swindle or corrupt. He pulled a fast one about Rose, but he knows I wasn't there to fight back. It galls him. And if he knows I'm here, alive, and looking for him, maybe he'll find me and try to wipe out the one flaw in his record. Granner shot a glance of grudging admiration, but shook his head. At the moment, I wouldn't count on it. He'll be busy and we'll see to it that he is. But if you want to go looking for him, maybe I can help you. Do you know where he is? No, but I can give you some hints where to look. Why? Tori was baffled. 2 reasons. Maybe more, but 2 will do. I'm a cop, so I hate men like Roper. If he's on Mars, I'll get him sooner or later because I'm a good cop. And it's my job. I hate crooks, so I'll kill him or catch him and send him to Phobos for keeps. The second reason is that I hate Mars. It's a tough world. What government there is corrupt and vicious. Offend the wrong people or stir things up, and you're out without your pension. You can even get hurt. I want out while I'm still ahead, with enough money to go back to Earth and live decently. And so far I haven't that kind of money. I don't see the connection, protested Tori. Granner's bushy eyebrows crawled up and down like caterpillars. There's big money in this Roper business. There has to be for anyone to take the risk of arranging a breakout from Phobos that costs plenty. Roper must have something pretty good this time to attract help like that. What is it? Granner shrugged. I don't know. My guess is transuranics, heavy metals beyond uranium in the atomic table, the stuff that powers planets. Without it our whole economy breaks down, and we can't even afford to make air for places like Mars. But you've mined it yourself. You know how rare and valuable it is. I know, said Tori. You think Roper has a new source? Maybe that, and maybe he's discovered or stolen a cheaper way to process or transport it. It figures, admitted Tori. Roper was always interested in transuranics, and always looking for a squeeze play like that. He'd be able to make his own terms, wouldn't he? Including squaring the charges against him? Just about any terms he dictated, grated the detective. Why tell me this? Granner's eyes narrowed. You want Roper for your own good reasons. I want him for mine. My hands are tied, but yours are not. If you want him, go after him. I'll help, short of risking my job. I'm offering to make a deal with you. It occurs to me that a couple of smart men could make a real killing by knowing the right time to buy a few shares of stock in transuranics. A man like me might even make enough to retire to Earth, comfortably. You're beginning to make sense, said Tori. What makes you so sure I'll cut you in for a slice? Granner laughed harshly. My nuisance value, for one thing. My usefulness for another. I'm an honest cop. But there's nothing in the rule book that says I can't pick up valuable information on the side while I'm doing my job. And nothing that says I can't put pressure on you to help me do it. Besides, why should you balk at doing me a favor when you're doing yourself one at the same time? I'm still listening. New to Mars, aren't you? New enough. I've been here before, but a long time ago and not for long then. Why? Do you know anything about the local setup, the governments? Not much. It's a kind of anarchy, I think. The big companies and even the labor racketeers have private armies like the old goon squads. Legal government is just a front for feudal gangs, with the police sitting politely on the lid. Lobbies and pressure groups are the real bosses. Is that right? Granner whistled his aimless Martian tune. You said it. I didn't. Not out loud. I never even think it in a room that might have microphones or scanners. Mars is interesting, beautiful, with shreds and tatters of an old, picturesque culture clinging to ivy patterns to the new, modern, cosmopolitan, industrial setup. It says that in the books and travel ads. Out here in the clean and lifeless air of a worn-out planet I can have the precarious luxury of hating it. I want out, and you're going to help me get out. Why stay anyhow? Because I'm a cop and it's the only job I know. And bad as it is, it's better than nothing. You've heard the yarn of the brash young rookie in Earth's Sahara City, the guy famous for arresting the police commissioner's daughter. I'm that cop. I hung a ticket on her for traffic violation. It turned out she was drunk and speeding away from an accident that killed somebody. The mess was too ugly to hush up, so she went to prison and I went to the sticks for keeps. I resigned and came here. So I learned to keep my mouth shut, do as I was told, and never to move an inch out of line with the people who count. You're breaking my heart, Tori said bitterly. Go on. Roper's not alone in this. Somebody with money and political influence arranged that escape, probably picked him up off the wreck. Before he went to Phobos he was mixed up with Transuranic Miners Union, and also with a Martian pressure group headed by Oldson Bas, the importer. He may still be. I want no trouble with either. With you it doesn't matter. Maybe you'll dig up a lot of interesting facts before you get yourself killed. Get to the point. Space freight. 2 large boxes consigned to Roper and Holden, his partner. Still unopened, held in the unclaimed space freight warehouse. Charges are high and Roper was broke. He tried to get money from TransU and the Martians, but neither was buying a pig in a poke. Not then. Maybe they are now. He must have convinced his backers, somehow. But they can't get the space crates either unless I say so. Roper and his pal tried robbery to raise money and landed on Phobos. I put the crates under police seal. Why weren't they condemned and opened? Too much red tape and money. The transport company can sell the stuff legally for charges, but only at public auction, unopened, and bids start at charges plus storage. Are you interested? Tori frowned. My funds are not unlimited. That's a chance we'll both have to take. I'm taking a chance on you anyhow, but don't try any smart tricks. I always cover bets. The boxes will be officially released for tomorrow's auction. All I ask is a look inside at Roper's gimmick, whatever it is, so I'll know whether to buy Transuranics or not. If you buy the boxes, the contents are yours. Fair enough? Tori grunted. If they sell low enough, you'll get your look after I've had mine. See that I do, warned Granner. And a word of advice. You can't import weapons to Mars, but there's no law says you can't buy one here and sleep with it. Shall I drop you at your hotel? The half-track was nearing the domed city. A gigantic half-bubble of polarized plastic rose from the plain to enclose both the old Martian town and the bustling, strident metropolis of New Chicago. From the desert the dome was nearly invisible, but the architectural jumbles looked like a forest of lighted Christmas trees appearing by magic in the swift dusk of the red planet. Tori grinned. You're forgetting I spent my first night in jail. Granner scoffed. Routine, one in jail, one in a hotel, the next in the morgue. Chapter 2. An auction of unclaimed, refused or damaged space freight held more surprises and excitements than a Martian wedding. All shipments were sold as is, unopened, which offered endless possibilities to a daring purchaser. Anything could pop out of a sealed space crate when the container was broken into, and sometimes it did, literally. One unlucky bidder got 7 full-grown Groll cats, shipped from Venus in suspended animation. His purchase caused 7 minor riots until company guards with gas guns could subdue the savage killers. Loot from a dozen inhabited worlds and 100 half-explored moons and asteroids littered the floor or spilled from damaged cases. Bids ran high and 24 small fortunes changed hands as lots 1 to 24 went up at auction and were knocked down. Any bid on unclaimed freight was a gamble, the one form not taxed to death by a greedy government. And the inhabitants of New Chicago were gamblers, or they would not have been there. The crowd was mixed and polyglot, human and half-human species rubbed elbows and tempers to a fine frenzy. Lot 25, sang the auctioneer. Who'll open? To avoid attracting attention, Tori had bid half-heartedly on several previous items, breathing a sigh of relief when bids pyramid and the lots sold to someone else. This time, he merely sparked off the bidding, only to have a Martian importer jump down his throat with an offer of twice the amount. Tori dropped out as the bidding climbed in dizzy spirals, and the shipment went to the impatient Martian for the price of a small space line. Laughter rippled over the auction lofts as the boxes were opened and found to contain 40 small air conditioners of a type useless on Mars. Lot 26 sold badly after that disappointment. It proved to be a treasure of rare luminous birds from Venus, and collectors immediately offered the fortunate purchaser triple his money for the lot. Lot 27, roared the auctioneer before excitement could die down. 2 large boxes to be sold separately. No information on these except that they were held overtime in storage and have just been released from police seal. The space crates are undamaged. Who'll open? Tori felt like a small child back on Earth, clutching moist bronze pennies in his hot, grimy fist as he ran to the corner candy store. Nerves and muscles contracted in his throat. He opened his mouth but no sound came out. 50 credits, shouted the Martian who had bought Lot 25. I want to recoup my losses. He stared belligerently at Tori. Somebody else doubled the bid. Tori found a shadow of his voice and redoubled. Grinning evilly, the Martian raised again, but not before he shot a wary glance across the room. Tori met the challenge, then following the direction of the Martian's glance, he spotted a Martian girl standing near the doorway. She was so swathed in blue Venusian spider silk as to be practically invisible, and there was time for only a general impression. But Tori did not miss the head nod signal, instructing the Martian male to bid for her. After the man's previous performance, Tori braced himself for spirited competition. Up and up went the bids astronomically. At 20,000 credits the Martian hesitated for an automatic mute appeal to the feminine figure. The girl nodded again, but that moment's doubt cost the Martian. Third and last time. Sold to the Earthman for 20,000 credits. Tori swallowed hard. He saw the girl glide toward him through the crowd, moving as smoothly and silently as a ghost. Like a maniac, the Martian charged to the platform, croaking a loud protest. Arguments became heated, voices were raised in harsh clamor, then blows struck. Grinning, Tori watched the scramble. A knot of uniformed company guards surged around the battling Martian and hustled him from the auction rooms. A gas gun was used finally to subdue the raging sportsman. While Tori waited for attendants to bring him the box and his purchase receipts, he looked again for the girl, but she had melted into the crowd. Interest was now roused to a high pitch. The auctioneer went into his spiel in whatever alien language auctioneers use, and it was only by knowing in advance what was being said that anyone could make sense of the garble. Other half of lot 27, droned the husky voice. How about 1,000 credits to open? 1,000, Tori bid hoarsely. He felt sweaty and feverish at the same time. Mentally he calculated his remaining resources. A little more of this, and the show would be out of his price class. Bidding was rapid. In jumps the price went up from 20 to 30,000. The Martian's hysteria seemed to have infected everyone. At 35,000, bidding slowed. 36,000, Tori bid. Moments lengthened and Tori's breath came slowly back. It was the absolute limit of his available cash, and the auction terms were cash on the spot. Numbly, he realized that his bid, if it were accepted, used up more than half of his fortune from 5 years of lonely work. 37,000, offered a bull-throated voice. And a barrel-bodied mine owner from Iobalali thrust himself forward as if to give authority to his bid. Tori had shot his wad. He could not raise the bid, and it meant loss of the second box. Slowly, the starch dissolved out of him and he let his excitement wilt. With bidding so high, the auctioneer was not impatient. He studied Tori hopefully. The moment extended. The gavel raised, slammed down. Going once. A thrusting hand delved into Tori's pocket where he clutched grimly at his sheaf of paper credits. For an awful moment he thought his pocket was being picked. Then crisp, rustling paper bulged his pocket, and realization bulged his eyes. There was no time for thought or argument. In blind confusion, he drew out a packet of paper money and stared at it. A cruel fist jabbed into Tori's ribs. Going twice at 37,000.